Greetings and thank you for tuning in to the Manifest Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Leema Pasha, Executive Wellness Coach and Business Consultant. I help professionals and business owners who are facing burnout to manifest wellness so they go from drained to reclaimed. If you are trying to achieve your personal and organizational development goals, wow, eliminating burnout, you've reached the right person. I wanted to tell you something special today. On this podcast, I bring you guests that help with business and wellness. And today I have a special esteemed guest, Dr. Stephanie Ardrey. She's going to share her insights about business funding, cultivating strategic partnerships, how to follow your vision, and if you're planning or dreaming of your next retreat, she's going to share with you information on the 420 Wellness in Jamaica. Dr. Ardrey is the CEO and president of 420 Wellness Jamaica Incorporated. She has directed multi-million dollar portfolios of commercial real estate development, luxury mixed use, and retail commercial projects. So she's so generous to share her knowledge with us here today. Dr. Ardrey is a global capital and wealth expert. She's also been a professor sharing her information with students at universities throughout. She holds a doctorate in business administration and with a concentration in international business and is currently completing a Juris Doctorate degree. Dr. Ardrey, I would like it if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to choose the road less traveled. You've done some amazing things throughout your career, and it seems like you followed your heart and your passion, and we want to know more.
Thank you, Leema. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. I have to tell you that I love what you take a stand for in terms of manifesting wellness, especially for professionals. That is a demographic that I personally know exhibit high burnout, unnecessary stress that lands in their bodies that needs to be addressed, and they need a lot of on-road. So I just applaud you for understanding the importance. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Okay, keep doing it. As it relates to this journey for me, I would say it really started when I was about 9 years old. At that time, my mother introduced me to this book called Back to Eden. That was when my sort of focus on this wellness journey began, because my mother decided that she was a young mom, but she suffered already with high blood pressure. And she was a petite little cute thing. So I couldn't figure out why it wasn't, she wasn't overweight. She didn't have any of those other signs. But what she did have was an high stress level. And that high stress level ultimately is what contributed to her demise. She died prematurely at 48 years young by having a brain aneurysm, which we know that as a stroke. So later, the reinforcement in terms of why this work was so important. But at 9 years old, I didn't know exactly how the global company was going to manifest. But I knew I wanted to be an international business tycoon. And I'll tell you a little funny story. I was an only child. Again, I said my mother was young. In fact, what I learned was she was in commercial real estate before that was a place to be as a young Black woman, like at 19 years of age. And sometimes she would travel. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. But at 9, we bought our own home. And so that was us, her leaving the nest and us kind of establishing our own existence, which meant that I got to go to business meetings and things with my mother. And she would often say that it wasn't like she was trying to take me. It was like I had a natural interest in business and these environments, and she where that came from, right? So I would spend monopoly money. My dolls were my customers. Like every form that I could get my hand on was part of my business. And one day I was out with my mother shopping, and I noticed that all the stores had credit card applications and they took credit cards. So I got the bright idea that my business needed to take credit cards too. So I came home and said, okay, I've got to create credit cards. Now I'm going to date myself when I tell you guys this, so don't laugh. But in the good old days, when you went and completed a credit card transaction, you would get an imprint. It wasn't digitized as it is now. So what I did was I took index cards and I colored each logo. So I created a Visa, a MasterCard, a Diners Club, just every logo that I could come up with. I created each one. Then I plastic coated them. Then I took a straight pen and pin pricked every letter and number so that I could put a piece of paper with my pencil and get an imprint. So now I've worked on this all afternoon in my room quietly, sneaking and stealing my mother's photo album refills to cover my index cards. Right when I've perfected my credit card, my mother enters the room. And you know when your mother enters a room and asks you a question with a certain tone, that you better have the right answer, because your answer is going to determine what happens next. So, what are you doing? And I was like, uh-oh, that means I'm about to be in trouble. So I said, Mommy, I know who I'm going to be. And she's like, who? And I said, I'm going to be an international business tycoon. So suddenly she kind of left out this nervous laugh, because I think she thought that next she was going to come in and I'd be counterfeiting money. Like, I don't know where her brain was, but she's like, what is my daughter thinking about counterfeiting credit cards at 9? Like, what's going to be going on? She did something that I say was really brilliant. She said to me, I'm in the boardroom. The San Francisco Bay Bridge is out the back of the window. The staff is sitting there paying attention, watching me, and I'm leading the team. I'm in a navy blue pinstripe suit. Like, I had all these details. And she's looking at me like, wow, at 9. And so she didn't say that you couldn't. And so at this time, the then wealthiest man in the world was a Middle Eastern deal maker. And why I knew these facts, I don't know, but that's the kind of stuff that attracted me. And so I was like, I'm going to be some kind of deal maker. I'm going to be doing something, but it's going to definitely be global. And I'm going to be an international business tycoon. What I didn't know that I understand at this particular moment is when you set a declaration, the Almighty and the ancestors agree with you. But depending upon the declaration that you set, then your journey becomes acquiring the tools necessary to fulfill that requirement. So what I didn't realize was I set off this series of events and training opportunities that was going to take me along this journey to develop all of the skills necessary to be right here at this moment as the CEO of this global, about to be multi-billion-dollar organization. But it started when I was 9.
Yes. That's powerful. Wow, that is a powerful gem that you just shared with everyone. Everything from, how to really encourage your children when they have lofty dreams, and
Yes.
just allow that expansion of their mind to the knowledge that, we know what we want to do from a young age a lot of times. Pretty powerful story. Um, I
I
wanted,
believe that at about 8 or 9 years old, most people have an idea. And what
yes,
happens is either they're socialized to believe in it or they're socialized to forget it. But they have an idea at about 8 or 9 years old.
That's true. That is so true. Wow. I can definitely attest to that. um, I teach people to see obstacles as opportunities. What are some of the most unique and rewarding challenges that you have taken on?
Oh my goodness, there were so many, but I'll tell you some critical ones. Um, my mother died, as I mentioned, at 48, and right at that point, the CEO of my advertising agency, the Ardrey Group, we were a JV that was backed by another agency. So we were a $250 million backed concern. I was about 27, I was about 30 by the time my mother died. I had not spent time in building a lot of personal relationships because I had been so driven to build this company. So I found myself at 30 with a business that was in litigation. Now my mother has passed, and I didn't feel like I really had that next set of growth, meaning I hadn't really invested successfully in a personal relationship, hence I didn't have any kids and kind of those things. I'd done a lot of investing in family and other people always, but personally. So I found myself at this sort of fork in a road where I was burnt out of the advertising business. I'd been in that space and business from about 19 years of age. I was now 30. Didn't have enough money because of the litigation. And even if I didn't have litigation, I wouldn't have had enough money for the rest of my life because I got out the gate pretty early. So I needed to know what was going to be my next. At that time, I thought my next was going to be real estate development. But that required that I be willing to go from having been a CEO where we had 8 offices, 400 employees, to going and being somebody else's employee and taking a significant step down in terms of my role in that organization just to get in the door. Because if they knew who I was, they wouldn't have let me in the door. But because they didn't, and I really banked on the fact that they didn't, and thankfully there wasn't any social media, so they couldn't pick up who I was. And it was just sort of this arrogance of, you're coming into this environment where nobody looks like you in our environment. You're not going to last 6 months. Instead, I ended up turning around a company, getting us past the multi-billion-dollar mark, and a whole bunch of other things. But initially, on my first day of going in to take that job, even after I had decided in my mind that that's what I was going to do, I pulled into the parking lot and cried my eyes out. My ego, right? Showing up and saying, how do you go from being here to here? And I said, you go from being there to there because you want something else and you're willing to pay the cost to get it. And what I wanted was to have technical expertise around real estate development because I thought that that would be an opportunity for me to fulfill my next dreams. I dried my eyes, got out of that car, and it was game on. And I kicked ass. Probably shouldn't have said that, but I kicked butt.
Yes. Wow.
Right?
The
Right.
vision.
But it was hard. It was hard. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. But I had something else driving me. Right.
Right.
And I used that. I relied upon the Almighty as my guide and the ancestors. And I just said, I don't understand it, but I'm going to go for it.
Wow.
Now I can look back and go, thank goodness, right?
Yes. The
But
vision
at the
for you to
moment,
know that that might help you to get into real estate development and, to even see that. Wow. That's pretty powerful. Hmm. And you kind of alluded to it already. Can you describe a little bit about what it was like to be a high level CEO in the real estate industry?
so in the real estate development world, I would say that when I transitioned out of doing development for other developers, basically, running their projects, building my resume into my own developments. The difficulty has been around finding capital in order to put money behind me as a developer. So what I had to transition into initially was doing advisory work for other developers that lack the technical expertise that I have, but maybe had either a project or had resources available. So I kind of did a little bit of advisory. At the same time, I began sourcing my own projects. And so what I decided was that I not only wanted to have the real estate as the assets in our portfolio, but that I also wanted to create a business that sat on top of the real estate. And so what that means is when most people think about organizations like McDonald's, the average consumer thinks of McDonald's as being a hamburger franchise business. Business people understand that McDonald's is in the real estate business. And so they have one of the largest portfolio of commercial real estate in the world, because each of those locations are either owned or controlled through some type of lease for a period of time. And the franchisee is paying for that real estate while McDonald's Corporation is making money on that real estate in many of those transactions. So because of my understanding of those principles, I have in my business model that whole real estate bucket. Then we have an operational system. So the Medi-Spa-Tels that I've created is an asset class of real estate that looks and feels different. It's my own category that I've created. And it is then like a company, if you think of like the Ritz-Carlton, for example. The Ritz-Carlton is a management model that's overlaid on hotel properties, but the Ritz does not own those properties. They're just licensing their model. Who typically owns those properties are like insurance companies or hedge funds that have bought the actual real estate, but they have it flagged as a Ritz. So in our business model, we have both our operating model of Medi-Spa-Tels that can be licensed, and then we have our own Medi-Spa-Tels that we're operating. So that's, our operational part. And then we also have a bucket of technology that allows us to deliver what I said we've created is wellness as a solution, as a service and solution. So we created a WAS delivery methodology that allows us to codify wellness in such a way that it's accessible and it's scalable and it's available in all of these different environments that people are looking to for wellness. So it's not just as much about the built spaces as much as it's about what are our protocols, what is our team working on, how do they approach helping you accomplish your wellness, and then what does that global community look like? And so what I have now is a group of investors that came to the table a few years back. Actually, this one group was looking to put up $1 billion for me to develop a casino in Las Vegas. But I wasn't so in love with that idea, to be honest. And thankfully, when I declined to pursue that project, thankfully I'd made an impression as a CEO that this group came back to me and said, hey, you're developing something else. What are you developing? We have money. We think we have money for you. And when I told them what I'm developing, they're like, we're in. We want to put together the money for you.
That's great. That is so powerful. I cannot wait to experience this 420 Wellness Jamaica. Oh, it sounds amazing. I love it. Can you share a story about your experience as an international business leader, either now or in your earlier years? Because I know you are well versed in this.
Yeah, thank you. I think what's really happening right now is probably, I'd say, the most exciting. So let me see, I've been in Jamaica now for almost a couple of months. I'm about to head home, but I left and went to London, and that was my first visit to London. And so because Doc he has a presence in London, I was joining him on a speaking tour while he was also treating patients, and I ended up staying for about a month and a half and really being well received. But before then, I had been speaking and talking about entrepreneurial opportunities and looking to be a part of different conferences. So I had spoken for Africa Day and, definitely involved with different task force. I'd say my early exposure to global markets began when I had the first business when I was about 19, 20 years old, because in Oakland, I sat on the advisory board for the international business for the Oakland Chamber of Commerce. And so we were constantly hosting different delegations of global business people looking to do deals. So I've been structuring business deals and opportunities for a long time. And then even I was involved as a channel partner with the Cayman Islands about a decade or so ago, helping companies explore the possibility of setting up their intellectual property offshore and structuring their ventures differently so that they can maximize their exposure into global markets. But what I found is that right now the world is ready for women that reflect the African diaspora. And so what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing is people ask me about London. I was received so well in London. They continue to interview me. I'm headed back. They want me to do the training. It was like, wow, we have the same interest and demand happening throughout the continent. Obviously, we're working on several locations for our business. So what I'm finding is that when you come into the market and people said, oh yeah, I Googled you. I'm like, absolutely. And listen, I have nothing to hide, right? I'm not making up anything. I want you to vet me and make sure that I am who I say I am, so that you can feel comfortable in what it is that I'm here talking to you about, because I really am interested in what it is I'm talking about. It matters to me. So I want you to take me at that level and know that I'm qualified to talk about it and I'm actually executing what I talk about.
Yes, that is wonderful. So, share with us a little bit about 420 Wellness and how we can participate and support and just get involved. I know you mentioned
Absolutely.
partner and different things like that.
So what we do at 420 Wellness is we deliver wellness a week at a time. And basically what we're saying is many people are struggling with toxic bodies that need to be detoxed. Many professionals are struggling with things like women, adrenal stress. When you start to see stats, which is a stat that was troubling to me, that finally African or women of African descent are now the fastest growing cohort of new entrepreneurs, the fastest growing cohort of accelerating executives and organizations. But guess what? They're also now the fastest growing heart attack and stroke victims. That to me doesn't jive, right? Why at a time that finally you're getting an opportunity to excel, to expand your business, are you dying off? Or you're coming down with a chronic or a major medical crisis? There's an imbalance there. That's not natural. But we know that the pressures and the stressors are not evenly dispersed. So some of us carry greater amounts of those stresses, and definitely excelling in corporate environments that have not always been welcoming. Launching entrepreneurial ventures where you require outside capital in environments that are not always welcoming, right? There's a lot of stress associated with that. So what we want to do was to create opportunities for people to recognize that wellness is an option. But first, we need to get you to move the paradigm from thinking sick care is the solution. So education, awareness, and at the same time, Dr. Oliver is a functional medicine physician, has been treating patients, testing his protocols for the last 15 years here in Jamaica, in US, it's practiced in Florida, now in the UK, the last 3 years in the UK. We have followers and patients out of the continent. So the reality now is that we have enough evidence of the outcomes that he's been able to produce with his various treatment protocols to know that what we are able to present is, one, accessible, but more importantly, we're able to produce the outcomes that you seek to move yourself along a path towards wellness. And we think, why not have your health and your wealth? Why kill yourself by working so hard to so-called create your wealth only to then die off before you can fully realize it, before you can be there to guide or develop a succession plan and make sure that now your family is able to realize generational wealth? We can't afford to have one generation work to accomplish something and it's wiped out before the next generation is able to inherit and build upon that. Legacies are built by being able to stand on the shoulders of each prior generation. We have to transfer the skill, the knowledge, and the wealth. We can't let our kids start out at -0 and expect that we can compete effectively in the global economy.
Yes, that is
And
powerful.
so what I open up to you, your listeners, is to, our website is 420wellnessjamaica.com. We're taking bookings right now. Our big promotion coming up is for 420 in Jamaica, which is April 17th through 23rd. It's going to be hosted from this beautiful property here in Treasure Beach. And what we're doing is you come in, we have a whole process where we introduce you to our wellness care. You typically go through a body assessment. From that, we understand what particular things are going on in your body so that we can detox you. And then we develop your meal plan and your wellness treatment plan and protocol that's uniquely for you based upon those assessments. And then you and us create your desired goals and outcomes. Obviously, we want you to be enrolled in this idea that full life is 120 years and beyond, and what that looks like for you. And so we want you to say, yeah, I want some of that. And not only you, but you begin to kind of influence your family. And everyone says, yeah, we all want some of that, right? And so we look at holistic wellness, mind, body, and soul. And so the 420 program in particular is aimed at our younger demographic. So that's like our 25 to kind of 55-year group who are familiar with 420 in terms of cannabis, which some of them may know that our bodies have a cannabinoid system. Some of them may not, but they'll learn those things, right? And understand what the medicinal benefits are. Doc is a cannabinoid scientist, and he has advised several multi-billion-dollar companies that have looked at cannabis from a medicinal perspective. And that's what I was very interested in. And that's how we came together and formed this organization, because as I began to learn more and more about the needs of my body, and guess what? I was struggling with adrenal stress and didn't know it. And had I not done my own assessment, I wouldn't have realized that my brain had been started to being poisoned from excess cortisol release. And I was going to be on a path toward early dementia or Alzheimer's had I not become aware of this and started detoxing my body. I seemed healthy. So that's the thing, is we can look and feel healthy, and yet things began to happen within our bodies. And those things that left unattended to become dis-ease. So what we want to do is we want to get you enrolled. Go to the website, get on the mailing list, learn more about the programs. As our technology rolls out, we'll have virtual opportunities as well as live opportunities to come and participate. say, get to Jamaica, pick your week, get here. Once you get here, we guarantee you'll be back. And you'll begin
Yes.
that journey for your wellness.
Yes. And what a beautiful location to start that journey. Wow. That is amazing. Um, I wanted to talk to you about cultivating business relationships to help scale businesses. Um, I know that we are all going to just march into your 420 Wellness Global and just enjoy those experiences. Um, and there are some, new business owners and professionals who are also interested in cultivating business relationships. So we want to know a little bit about your experiences and the nuances of that. I heard you say something already that inspired me. You said, if you have relationships or venture capital, just ask for advice. Don't be afraid. Don't be too shy to speak up and start cultivating those relationships early. So would you mind elaborating on that and sharing for people who might be interested in raising capital for their own businesses?
Right. And I think that that's such an important question. And let me tell you why. I have trained entrepreneurs over the course of my career because, again, very early on, like I said, I was in business and I realized the value of being able to share what I was learning. It's something that I enjoy doing. What I learned along the way is that when you make contact with someone, you don't always know the purpose of that connection, right? So rather than thinking of this is who I need to meet, this is whatever, when you set an intention for what it is that you're doing, you'll find that you start to attract or resonate at a certain energy level with other people that are occupying that level of energy. So that's number one. But what happens is a lot of times people, and I'm going to speak to my women business owners in particular, because I see this as kind of a common mindset. We tend to be the caregivers. So a lot of times I've seen a disproportionate amount of our efforts be focused on how can I give back? So let me set up a nonprofit organization. And we set up a nonprofit organization very early in our career, which means we don't have resources where we can finance that organization. So it means that I now have to beg other people to finance that nonprofit. A nonprofit you do not own. So you use all of your best years to create something that you're going to work at a discount in, and you get to own zero at the end of the day. You can't pass it on to your family. You can't pass it on to your kids. It's zero. No, don't do that. I say go out, create a viable business, do good, make some money, then write a check and launch your foundation. Okay? But these relationships that I'm talking about, because so many entrepreneurs or executives transferring into entrepreneurship think of, well, my business is not going to get that big. Then they make the number one mistake. They don't begin to build relationships around capital. They don't begin to educate themselves around capital. So what happens is you get an opportunity to launch your business gets traction, and you need to grow. And now you can't find the capital. Why? Because you never cultivated the relationships. And so what you do is, because you used to be an employee or an executive, you have banking relationships that are retail banking relationships. Those are not the relationships that are going to take you through the early stages of your business. You've got the wrong relationships. So you don't know that, because by the time you think to start asking, you should have asked those questions 5 years, 10 years ago. You shouldn't have been putting your money in that retail bank when you could have been building a banking relationship with commercial banks that are set up to invest or to support businesses. So it's, fundamental things. And that's the same thing about relationships. If you call me up now and I say that I have a fund and suddenly you want me to invest in you and I don't know you from Adam, do you really think I'm going to write you a check that I am on the hook for? Think about it. That's like me walking up to a stranger on the street and saying, hey, I want to buy this car. Would you co-sign it for me? Come on. You wouldn't do that. Why would you expect anyone else to do that? No. Who are you? Where did you come from? What is your track record? What have you done? Why have you done it? How have you done it? With whom have you done it?
Right.
All of those things. So, it's the same thing. It's you're building a relationship. They say build the well before you need to drink the water, right? And so that does require some foresight. So thinking about, just in case my business plans succeed, what kind of relationships will I need down the line? And where can I leverage those relationships? And that's where sometimes, when I structured the financing around my advertising agency, I knew that I needed some capital infusion, but I knew that that wasn't all I needed. What I needed really was access to staff at a scalable level. I also needed access to infrastructure. And the biggest thing that I needed was access to credit lines that would allow me to buy the media at the size and scale that I needed to be able to compete, at least as a regional agency. That informed how I went out to building relationships. That's why it wasn't just about a check. It was about what are these other things that I'll be able to have access to and then be able to leverage to then create the growth for our organization. So kind of incubating our organization within a bigger concern so that we could scale faster and grow from there.
Yes. And that is the right word that kind of really tells what you're speaking about, that incubation, that period of, formation when you're growing something. Wow. Some business owners may not even know how to cultivate those relationships or what relationships they need. And then if they know, now the thing is to have the confidence to go in and do it. So it's back to you choosing the road less traveled, and just knowing what to do and just having that. Where does that come from? It's just
I think, like I said, I was really fascinated in business very early, and then come to find out, I'm really from a family of entrepreneurs. Our family are entrepreneurs, attorneys, doctors. They have all of those different backgrounds. One of the things I didn't know growing up was that my father's mother, my grandmother, was one of the first Black women attorneys in the state of California. She hated it, so she stopped practicing and became a school teacher. By the time I came along, we had a set of legal code books that I used to just read for fun, not understanding why I was reading those books, but I would go down and read about corporations just because I was curious. As a kid, like I said, I played business, I played entertaining, and I played teaching. And so I think that my life story has been built upon those things that I was naturally drawn towards, because for me, I've not been working. I've been having a journey of exploring my curiosity and being able to take on new things. I think that's really what it's been about. I love to learn. I love being in learning environments, and I love putting myself in places where I can explore and expand beyond, if you will, my thoughts. And that's why I find when there's some type of constraint, then I move myself from that space so that I can change the energy, so that I can release, the boundaries that I'm taking on. I need to kind of get to another environment. And so that's really what this journey has been about. And it has required being courageous at times to step out. But it's about knowing what it is that makes your soul sing. Early on, I knew that I wanted to own an island. I wanted to develop the island.
Yes.
I didn't, you know what I mean? So it's like, so when you start seeing the signs that are showing up. And it's like, oh, in October 2020, when I was here in Jamaica, I wasn't, I kind of had said, okay, well, I'm not buying Jamaica, but I can create a business here. I don't have to wait and create another business that becomes a multi-billion-dollar business in the US to then come to Jamaica. I can create the business from Jamaica. So pivot my mindset a bit, and there you have it, right? And so, the rest is sort of what's becoming that new story. But that was about the willingness to say that I'm willing to make some adjustments, but also that I'm being guided by the Almighty and the ancestors. And so they're kind of taking me along this journey, and all my responsibility is to be obedient and to maintain the desire for excellence in implementing the assignments that I have been given.
Yes. Oh, we wish you all the success. I wanted to ask, what advice would you give your 9-year-old self today?
I would tell my 9-year-old self, sweetheart, you are on the path. Continue, have fun, because fun is okay. Don't let them convince you not to have fun. And your emotions are important. So you should own them. You should have them. Do not turn them off for anyone, because they are your guide to help you evaluate what works for you, because you have a rudder and you are solidly following the Almighty and the ancestors, and other people don't understand that, and it's not your responsibility for their learning and understanding. All you need to worry about is yours. And so have some joy along the way. I was a happy person, because there's people who say she was always bouncing off the wall. I was nonstop happy. But there were times that I let my family get in my head. They said I was weird because the stuff that I was interested in, that just, they weren't talking about those things. So, I did kind of have that, oh, you're weird, oh, you don't fit in, oh, and so in the back of your mind. And, we all face those insecurities, and then constantly going into environments where I'm the first Black woman ever hired, like that. I was the first. So then everything that was promised in those environments, oftentimes when they realized I was chocolate and they couldn't hide that, right? Then suddenly part of the benefits that I was told I got were removed in many environments, because they never had to have a Black executive. So they never had to see the Black person take advantage of, I worked in some hotel environments where they barely had Black guests, so much less have a Black executive, and all of those things. And so I would just tell my 9-year-old self that this, as you say, road less traveled is okay. You have guidance, you have support, and you have protection. So it's going to be okay. Go forward and enjoy the journey.
That is so beautiful. Wow. I know you mentioned your book club. Would you like to share any about that? I know you're an avid reader, so love to hear some of your book recommendation. I'm also an avid reader, so I just feel like the world just opens up through books, and you just get so much energy learning about things.
Yes, I have 2 books that I want to introduce to our audience, to our community. We're going to work on getting the community solidified. What I'm doing this year is I'm doing a course in miracles. And if you're familiar with the course, it is a year-long course. And so this is my 5th attempt at doing the course, but this is the year that I will complete the course. And what I've come to realize is that I will continue to do the course, because each year of completion And each year through the material, you're at a different stage of your evolution. So I can see where the course will be a continual part. So I'm looking forward to next January introducing the course to a new community of followers and having them go through, because I will have a bunch to talk about along my journey from this year. But we also will be introducing what Mama never told us about love and healing from the legacy of slavery. It's a book that's written by two dynamic women out of the San Francisco Bay Area, Dr. Brenda Wade and Brenda Richardson. They collaborated on this work, and what it does is really talk about relationships and the emotional legacy that we've taken on, that's in our DNA from the trauma that has been suffered and internalized. And so when I talk about creating generational wealth and creating relationships, kind of the first pushback that I receive is people saying, well, Black people can't work together, whatever. And I'm like, cut, cut, cut. I don't ascribe to that. I don't ascribe to that narrative. Let me show you why. But since you need some healing, because that's what you're telling me, is since you need some healing, right? Let me put you in an environment where you can be healed. So I've reached out to a friend now who is a author, and he gives relationship advice aimed at women. And so he and I are going to moderate this conversation. And I don't know Dr. Wade personally, but I have a person on my team who does. And so we're going to see if we can get her enrolled in the conversation with this community that we're creating, because that's one of the books that we want to, again, use again and again to make sure that more and more people become familiar with that information and begin to really work with and live with it. So there's like mastermind groups that'll break out after they've been introduced so that they can continue to develop the conversations. And so those are two of my initial books, but I have a whole list.
That's awesome. Is it going to be virtual, or do we have to come to Jamaica to participate?
Both. You get to pick, but it's going to be set up so that you can participate virtually. And then also for those who are live in the various places, we'll kind of travel around and show, where we're hosting a live opportunity to join in on the conversation.
That is so wonderful. Addition to support our wellness and to relieve burnout,
Yes.
so we can achieve our professional goals while at the same time supporting our wellness.
Yes. Yes.
If you're watching, you need to subscribe now. There's been so much value that Dr. Ardrey has brought to us. Dr. Ardrey, do you have any closing remarks that you would like to share?
I would just really like to encourage anyone that's thinking about entrepreneurial opportunities. Even if you feel that you need to gain more experience, it's fine to gain experience in environments where you can go in, gain that experience, and then parlay that into your own business. There's nothing wrong with that. Use those opportunities to develop your relationships, to develop your resume of experience, and to kind of understand how structures work. Because a lot of times what happens is, again, creating a business, if you're not as familiar with why infrastructure becomes necessary, then you don't understand the path towards growth, right? At some point, you need infrastructure because you want to grow. And even if you say, hey, I don't necessarily have kids that want to own and operate my business, that's fine. Sell that business and realize the gains from selling that business and put those proceeds in a family trust that then creates resources for your kids to do whatever they want to do. They don't have to do what you're doing, but create some kind of foundation for them, right? And so it just begins with an idea, and that idea can be nurtured, but we have to do the work. Nobody's going to give that to you. You've got to go out and do the work. And so know that there are communities out there and people who are rooting for you. And I promise I've got so much content that I'm going to continue to make available and accessible, because I want you to have the right tools and the right opportunity to succeed. And I'm being transparent about our journey as well, so that those are teachable moments that people can learn and glean from. And that's why I've been willing to share this journey, even to how the business evolved this quickly, but more importantly, our capital journey, all the things that I've had to do. I made sure that I took some pictures of some of the hotels that, we're like, did you really stay there? And I'm like, yeah, I really stayed there for a week because I needed to save the budget, because I needed to be in the country for 3 months. And, I can't stay at a luxury $200 a night place for 3 months when I'm bootstrapping and, trying to see if this is an idea that is feasible, right? So, you make different adjustments. So just understand that that's par for the course, as they say. But know that the Almighty and the ancestors are rooting for you, so you can succeed.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your visionary leadership. I want to tell everyone to manifest wellness with gratitude, visualization, and community. You can check the description box for how to become one of my clients. And also, there will be a link in the description box to participate in the next Executive Wellness Recharge. And I'll see you next time. Be well.